problem, the Bogue Road improvement, the dualization of the Holcook Boulevard, the dualization of the Elegant Corridor. But despite all of these, we continue to have the traffic congestion problems in the city. But how does the traffic congestion manifest itself? So if you look at two of the main corridors which go into Montego Bay Road, and most people know these two roads. Typically we call them the top road and the bottom road. Gloucester Drive on the bottom and the top road, which is Queens Drive. If you look at the time it takes to get from one side of Montego Bay to the other side of Montego Bay, you quickly recognize that there are significant delays as you go through Montego Bay. So what this graph shows you is the time it takes to get through Montego Bay, traveling from east to west and from west to east during various times of the day. In the morning, you can see the sharp peak where the travel time goes up to about 40 minutes, just trying to get from one side of the city to the other. And interestingly, even though we're having a 40-minute travel time, if you are driving at normal vehicle speeds along the roadway, this would only have taken you 7 or 8 minutes. So it's not the distance that is causing the problem, it's the significant congestion that we're having on the roadway. Similarly, if you look at Queens Drive, which is the other road, the other alternative, so when you're coming into Montego Bay, typically most drivers will have two options, either driving along the bottom road or driving along the Queens Drive, which is what we call the top road. You have the same issues, significant peaks, significant delays in terms of getting from one side of the city to the other. Again, as I said before, a distance that if you're traveling normal vehicular speeds, it would take you of the order of 7.8 minutes to travel across the city. So we try to understand what was causing the problem. Why is there a congestion problem? Where are people coming from? And where are they going to? And so in order to do this, we set up what we call 7 traffic analysis zones throughout the city, where we started stopping people and asking them questions about where they're coming from, where you're going to, in order to try and understand why we have this significant congestion problem in Montego Bay, and would a bypass, for example, help solve that problem? Because we needed to understand how many people wanted to go to the city, as against how many people were just passing through the city. So we collected about 3,000, we did about 3,700 surveys. And out of those surveys, we came up with what we thought was an estimate of how much traffic would likely go around Montego Bay rather than go into Montego Bay. As how many people were destined for the town of Montego Bay, as against how many people wanted to either go through to Negril or vice versa, go through to Ocho Rios. And based on that, we came up with some projections in terms of what the traffic on the bypass would look like, how many people would choose to use the bypass if a bypass was built. And what you see on the screen are some estimates of the traffic along the various sections of the bypass. So the bypass starts on the Iron Shore side. I'm actually at the bottom of the screen. And so from Iron Shore to Salt Spring, there'll be about the order of 20,000 vehicles on the bypass. Between Cornwall Court and Salt Spring, of the order of 19,000 vehicles. Between Portobello and Cornwall Court, another 19,000. I'll show you the alignment so you can get a better feel for where these locations are. So once we understood how much traffic would be on the bypass, we then started looking at what are the alternatives for building this bypass road around Montego Bay. And so we did a number of different alternatives. In fact, we did 12 sub-alignments looking at different areas, different ways to get around Montego Bay. Obviously, because Montego Bay is now built up, we had to find a way through the existing developments which are on the bypass. And these options included a number of tunnel options. In fact, interesting, when we did this study in 2001, when the original studies for the Montego Bay bypass was done, tunnels were some of the options which were considered at the time. And so we looked again at the viability of building a tunnel, which would shorten the distance around Montego Bay. So we came up with a number of criteria, and we use these criteria to evaluate the various options. And from these options, we came up with what we call a preferred alignment. And so that preferred alignment starts at about Ironshore. So if you're coming from Kingston, just about where Ironshore is, where Blue Diamond Shopping Center, most people in Montego Bay know Blue Diamond. We start just by the gas station at Blue Diamond, come up the hill above Cornwall Courts and wrap around, going back around onto Bogue Road. And I'll show you a tour of what that alignment looks like. So this is just a quick tour, which takes us along the Montego Bay bypass alignment, starting from the Horde Cook Boulevard side. Just giving it a little time to load. Thank you. All right, so if you think of driving down the Horde Cook Boulevard going west, we continue going west, and then we wrap around the sewage ponds, which everybody in Montego Bay knows, on Bogue Road. From there, we go across Bogue Road itself with a grade separated interchange. We go past ATL Motors on the right and JUTC on the left, and then we find our way through Temple Gallery Road, which is a narrow road which we're widening to 4 lanes. From there, we go past Bogue Village and past what is supposed to be the new UWI campus in Montego Bay. We go across Fairfield Road, and from here, we're running pretty much parallel with the Montego River, climbing up the hill, trying to find the way through the existing developments. So we climb up the hill. Again, for people who know Montego Bay, on the left we have Portobello developments, and on the right we're coming up to Irwin, the Irwin developments. We have obviously a lot of new infrastructure being put in, new bridges to come across the Montego River in this location, and a lot of new interconnections. So we're connecting from one side of the river onto the other side of the river, from the Irwin side onto the Portobello side, and also at the same time connecting some rural roads, the road from Adelphi, tying it into the highway at this point. So at the Irwin location, we have a new interchange. From Irwin, we then continue up the hill. We're now almost at the highest point along the alignment, which is in the area of Cornwall Courts, just behind where we have Green Pond High School. One of the things to note as we go through this area, there are a lot of lands being opened up for development. So this is not only a transportation project in the sense of reducing travel times, but it's going to open up significant new lands for development in that area. So we go past Cornwall Courts, past Green Pond High School, and then we start making our way down on the other side of Montego Bay. So we're now on the Ironshore side of Montego Bay. From here, we go through the Salt Spring developments, and then down the hill, coming up to Ironshore on the right-hand side, again opening up new lands for development, and then coming down, finally, down into the North Coast Highway, again down into the Elegant corridor with the hotels on the northern side. So this is just an illustration of what the what the Montego Bay bypass will look like. Part of the project is also what we call the Long Hill bypass. And the Long Hill bypass is another critical part of the project, which will see us bypassing what is currently called Long Hill. So just to finish up, so as the video comes in, we're coming into the Elegant Corridor with the hotels on the northern side. So this is approximately 15 kilometers of roadway, and what this will do is deal with the congestion for people who don't necessarily want to come to Montego Bay, but who want to go around Montego Bay, or people who work on either side of Montego Bay, and therefore who don't necessarily need to go into downtown Montego Bay. But as I was saying, another critical part of the project is the Long Hill bypass. So again, for anybody who lives in Montego Bay, the Long Hill Road is a winding road which connects the Montego Bay area to the south of the country. And so what we have done is to tie this new Long Hill bypass into the project. So part of the project will see us building what will actually become the first section of what we call our Highway 2000 project from Montego Bay going all the way back to Mandeville on the other side. Let me just see if the video will start up. So as I was saying, the Long Hill Bypass project is approximately 10 kilometers. It starts along the existing Montego Bay bypass. So just at where we were talking about earlier, where the Bogue Village starts, that's where the Long Hill bypass starts. So for those people who normally come down Long Hill through that winding road, frequently blocked by trucks and accidents, this is what we call the new Long Hill bypass. This will become the new connection of Montego Bay to the southern side of Jamaica, going down to Macfield. So the Long Hill bypass comes up through Bogue Hill, gets up to Anchovy. At Anchovy, we have a new interchange which connects back the Anchovy main road to the new Long Hill bypass. From there, we have virtually green areas. So this is the Anchovy area we're coming across. From Anchovy, again, as we said, on a new alignment, continuing all the way down to Montpelier. So the section that we're building as part of what we call the Long Hill, part of the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project, is a section from Montego Bay to Montpelier in the first phase. Once that is completed, then we will start the construction of the other sections of the roadway.
You've got 15 minutes. Your time is just about up.
Right. So just to mention, there are two other projects which make up the Perimeter Road project. One is the Barnett Street project, which is just an improvement of Barnett Street. And similarly, the other is the West Green Avenue improvement. So those four projects make up the Montego Bay Perimeter Road project. Currently we're out now doing surveys along the alignment to better understand the features of the roadway. We're looking at valuations of properties along the alignment. The overall project is expected to cost about $220 million. And once we have the EIA permit, we expect to get started in about 2022.
Right. So thank you so much, Mr. Ivan Anderson, with an overview of this project. We're going to hear now from Dr. Carlton Campbell, Managing Director, CL Environmental Company. He will present on the findings of the EIA report. He has 20 minutes. Remember, stakeholders, you'll have 35 minutes to ask your questions and to get your answers. Please send your questions to the various means that are available. We're on Zoom, we're on TVJ YouTube, JNN YouTube, and we are live, of course, on JNN. Get ready with your questions so the answers can be given. As NEPA said, there is no finality to the EIA, the granting of the EIA in this session. There's no final decision. We're having the discussions, and a decision will be taken by the appropriate body, and you will have a chance to make submissions to NEPA within 21 days after this. So Dr. Campbell, it's your time now for your 20-minute presentation on your EIA report.
Thank you, Emily. Just waiting on it to come.
Right.
All right, good afternoon. You'll appreciate for a project of this size, we had to put together a multidisciplinary team. This slide just gives an outline of the persons who were involved. CL Environmental, CX Solutions. We also had the Jamaica National Heritage Trust who looked at all the historic and cultural sites. And we had associated consultants that did different aspects of the project. For this, with the outline, we're dealing with issues raised, geotechnical features that came along, hydrology, dust, noise, vibration, impacted structures, and flora and fauna. And what we have done is try to pull together the major impacts that we think. There are other impacts and minor impacts that we have dealt with in the EIA, but for these purposes, we kind of pull it together. We had some meetings and some of the issues that came out. Some of them were dealt with on these slides in terms of traffic, in terms of persons having property in the alignment, how it will be dealt with. NROCC has a relocation and plan. There are questions about how we deal with noise, which we have dealt with, in terms of access, especially for the UWI Western Campus. In terms of drainage, which is an issue that was raised. A part of this project that's there is the drainage. There's a master drainage plan, which deals with drainage in and around Montego Bay. That was not dealt with in this EIA aspect because it's a separate section. But in terms of drainage, I'll assure residents that that issue was looked at. Can you get it bigger?
Right.
Thank you. All right. There's also the possibility of changing of alignment, and that will be done with NROCC and their team in terms of discussions, in terms of some persons who might be impacted by the alignment. Question on how long you can lodge your complaints. You can do it both verbally or in writing to NROCC. There are also issues that came up in terms of access. How do we access the road? There are issues of alignment in terms of how it impacted the flora and fauna, and those are answered in the EIA. That's to say that there are some issues that came up in terms of mangrove removal and also in terms of the broadleaf forest. We'll get into that later. There are also issues that were raised by a stakeholder, National Water Commission, which we took on board and we also dealt with in the EIA document. We also had a meeting at West Green, where some of the questions that came up in terms of children using the road, if there will be an overhead bridge, and the answer really is no, but there will be intersections, at the, crossing at the intersections. There are also concern about noise, dust, and vibration, which we'll deal with later on. And in terms of compensation, as I said, that will be dealt with NROCC and the relocation compensation plan. Also, the issue of drainage keep coming up, and as I said, that is something that was dealt with in the study. There was also a question in West Green about accommodation for persons with disabilities, and the road and the roadway will take that into consideration. There are some geotechnical features that we need to highlight. between Alice Eldemar Drive and into the Bogue Lagoon area, Bogue area where they have the sewage plants, then there's a issue towards the soil type. There's a possibility of settlement. That will be dealt with in terms of the engineering of the road in that area. Coming up further up, then you also have the issue of the road running between the two sewage ponds, and that was something that was discussed with the National Water Commission and how best to deal with that. In the Tucker Portobello area, there's, based on the cuts, there's a possibility of rock falls, and also in terms of the drainage, we have to think about cross drains for the highway. One of the issues when it comes to road projects is that when persons tend to get complaints about flooding, is that the drains are not adequately sized, or the road itself is blocking the flow of water, and that's how the flooding really comes about. In terms of into Salt Spring area, we have to think about the Salt Spring gut coming down into Ironshore. That watershed that flows comes down. Persons would have seen it, the effect of it, a couple of years back when Rio was flooded out in the Ironshore area. A lot of debris and water came down, and that was a problem. On the Long Hill bypass section, the beginning, the Bogue area, we have issues that possibly be settlement, and as I said, that's something that can be engineered out. In the Bogue, Wilshire area, we can have rock falls, but you also have to look at the flows in terms of drainage, so that we don't have an issue of what occurs now, where when you have rains, water come down from Anchovy all the way down onto the coast. In terms of Wilshire, Mount Carey, there's some issue with settlement. And then closer to Mount Carey, then there's an issue where we had to look at the Anchovy gully to make sure that allowances is in there so that the flows are not obstructed. In terms of hydrology, the major thing on this project is the realignment of a section of the Montego Bay River, and that area is closer to it's down closer to the area closer to slips me right now, but Fairfield, thank you. It's a Fairfield. And we know over the years that the river has overflown its banks in heavy rains. So one of the things is that the river, while we are doing the alignment, is that the river would cross the highway at least twice in a short period of time. So what we have done is proposed to realign 240 meters of that river so that it doesn't cross the road. And this slide kind of gives you an idea of where it is. The pink looking area is that we have changed the alignment so it doesn't cross the highway and made allowances for the Tuller Spring. There's another issue in terms of potential erosion in the Barnett, well, by the Barnett River, Barnett Bridge, I should say, the Montego Bay River. And that image on the right gives you an idea of some of the erosion on the banks. And that's something that we'll have to take into consideration. In terms of the realignment, we also looked at what impact it would have on increased velocity of the river, because they are straightening it. But what we found was that the change was minimal, between 1% and 5%. But also, we'd also want to do some river training just to ensure that the bridge doesn't fail because of erosion. In terms of dust, all of the ambient, which is the existing, were within the NRCA dust standards. But we know in a project like this, because you're clearing land, because you're doing excavation, because you're transporting mire, then there's a possibility of dusting. And then there are some general things that you need to do to prevent that. You wet the area within 4 to 6 hours, and on a hotter day, then you wet it more frequently. You minimize areas that are cleared, so you only clear as the smallest amount of area you need, so that you don't create dust nuisance. You cover or wet the construction materials, and also for trucks transporting, you also ensure that they are covered. Another thing is during construction, there are times when things fall off the trucks. We need to have persons there to ensure that they are swept up off the road. In terms of noise impacts, we had looked at these tables to give you an idea of what we expect. The baseline is what's existing, and as you can see, it's an example. This is West Green. All of the noise levels between the daytime noise and the nighttime noise levels have already exceeded the NRCA standard. So we are showing you with the mitigation. All right, what would happen? So without mitigation is the one at the top table, and the bottom table shows the cumulative impacts, which is the noise from the highway plus the existing noise, what it would be. And if you look at that table, you'll realize that the mitigation steps really work. And what we are proposing are noise walls. These images give you an idea of where the noise walls will be, or proposed to be. So you have Montego West, up Temple Gallery Road, near Orange Irwin, and of course Westgate. Salt Spring would have, and coming down into Ironshore. Those areas are proposed to have. On the Long Hill bypass, you have Montego Bay West Village again, up Garden Cross, up Bogue Hill, and also you'd have it on Fustic Grove and at Anchovy Bottom. And near York, Mount Carey area would also be another area that we'll think about. In terms of the Barney Street dualization, a lot of it would be on the eastern side of West Green, as you can see in the slide. And then for West Green, pretty much along the length of the roadway to protect the houses that are in the line. Vibration, we looked at vibration. That's an issue that was raised in our meeting at West Green. So this table gives you an idea of the vibration, what effect it levels and what effect it has on humans, what effect it has on buildings. So we looked at vibration in different areas and at different distances. We looked at where the closest residence would be to the proposed alignment. So the closest alignment would be between the 31 to 50 meters of the Montego Bay perimeter road. Persons in these homes would actually be feeling the effect of construction. If there's any blasting, then it would be even more. Pile driving, for example, in Irwin area where we expect to do a bridge, then that for sure will cause more discomfort. This table gives an idea of the different types of construction equipment, what the vibrations will be in terms of predicting the vibrations based on the various distances from where the equipment are being used. We looked at the Fairfield Great House, and because it's a historic site, we looked at it. Pile driving would be an issue, but in terms of blasting, then you'd more likely have an impact on the architectural thing of the building. In the Long Hill bypass, we looked at things closest to the buildings, closest to the alignment at 15 to 20 meters. Persons, of course, as we were saying, would have an impact on them in terms of vibration. Blasting would also be a problem. In terms of the Long Hill bypass, this is some ideas of some of the equipment and the vibrations from them. West Green, we looked at West Green, as I said, that came up. We did recording, we did some measurements, and at the values that we got, those persons would really, at present with the traffic there, it supports what they're saying in terms of that they feel a vibration when trucks and vehicles pass in there on the road at present. There's no effect on the building, though, based on that. We did some prediction in terms of what we expected. The vibrating roller would be the one that causes the highest vibration, and if it's used close enough to the buildings, then it can cause both structural and also architectural damage. And these are the predicted values that we have looked at. So in terms of mitigation, some of the stuff is we will communicate with persons so as they know what is happening and when, because that's one of the issues that make it unpleasant. We also would have to do tests and surveys before to ensure that we look at persons' buildings and so that when the work is done, just in case there's an issue, then we can know what the building was like before. And looked at the type of equipment that's going to be used, and also to make sure that instead of using all of the vibrating type of equipment altogether, then you look at phasing it, demolition, earth movement, ground impact, instead of doing all at the same time. That will help to reduce the impact of vibration. And as I said, have regular meetings with the person. As with all of these projects, alignments, there are times when persons find that their structures are in the alignment, the proposed alignment. And in this case, there's no exception. Onto the Montego Bay by perimeter road, we expect, and as I said, proposed and potential, because the alignment, final alignment and surveying is being done now. We expect about 225 structures to be impacted, whether it be residents, whether it be stalls, whether it be walls, whether it be parking lots. And the table gives you an idea of what they are. For Long Hill, we expect about 180, and as I said, and the maps on the right on the slide gives you an idea of the areas in which we expect these to be. In terms of dualization of Barnett Street, most of those are either car parks, bus stops, and it's only 13. And in terms of West Green, we have some houses there, not houses, sorry, car parks, footpaths, bus stop, and other commercial side shops. These are maps showing you some areas along West Green where we have those potential impacted areas. Also looked at flora and fauna. In terms of the flora, the studies show that there are areas that varying areas, developed areas based on the land use, either agriculture, housing, industrial. Some of the species found, 142 along Montego Bay, 135 along Long Hill, 35 and 49 along Barnett Street. A large percentage of the forests in Jamaica are disturbed and degraded. Here is not much different. There are some areas, but we have crossed some forest estates. There are endemic species that were found along them, example, the Thrinax. 15 endemic species were found, and the table gives you an idea of some. So the broadleaf forest along the Montego Bay perimeter road, we expect to impact about 32.5 hectares. 10.2 out of that is in Crown land, but there's a reforestation plan that was developed and the proposal submitted to the Forestry Department. NROCC has 60 hectares under their ownership to do replanting exercise. Along Long Hill, we expect about 34.7 hectares. Most of it is going to be in private lands. And of course, as I said, the plans are in place, awaiting the approvals. Now the issue of the Montego Bay, the removal of mangroves, we expect to impact about 2.71 hectares of mangroves in the Bogue area. And one of the ways of mitigating is replanting mangroves. NROCC has already identified a site. And we also, for those that are left, we're putting in at least 4 balancing culverts that allows water to pass through so that one side doesn't get dried out, and also for mobile animals that they can pass through from one side to the other, so we don't block them off. In terms of fauna, several species are found of special conservation, especially in the endemic bromeliad fauna. 7 amphibians, 5 of which were endemic, 13 reptiles, 12 endemic land snails, and there's a picture of the endangered bromeliad frog. It's limited in range, especially in the western section of Jamaica, and its distribution is severely fragmented. There is also butterflies, and while these surveys were done during the drought, during the wet period, we expect more species to be found. There's also the bromeliad crab that was there. Terrestrial species, 44 species in limestone, 32 species were found, and these are birds. More endemic were found in the wooded areas. There are 500 wetland species in the Bogue Switch Pond area. Most were migrant waterfowls. No wetland species are special. And they will also look at bats in the area. One cave that we had recorded, that's as closest to the highway, is along the Barnett Street, and that one has literature that says that bats are found in there. In terms of mangrove forest, 13 wetland, 2 species of crabs, lizards, wasps, and snails. And this is a picture showing the oyster on the mangrove roots. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good. Just in time, 20 minutes. Thank you so much, Doc, for that presentation with that report. Let's take a break. When we come back, your questions. We know you have a lot of questions on this. You've seen the presentation. You've heard the potential areas of concern that were covered: drainage, dust, noise, mangrove removal, and so forth. You can send your questions. Let me just remind you of the WhatsApp numbers. The number is 876-878-1356. Call through as well on 876-926-1100. Send your questions through Zoom and through whatever platform you're using. The WhatsApp numbers are now on the screen, as well as the call-in, and put your questions to the panelists, except Mr. Nelson from NEPA, who will not answer any questions in this segment at all. So when we come back, we'll hear from all of you with your questions and concerns.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much. Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much.
Get moving!
We're back with you. So welcome to the virtual town hall for the National Road Operating Constructing Company, NROCC. It's public consultation, and we're looking at the proposed Montego Bay Perimeter Road, the presentation of the Environmental Impact Assessment Study, as you heard a moment ago, with some of the areas of concerns that would come up with a project like this and the ways in which those could be addressed. So we're taking your questions now. We have 35 minutes for stakeholders' questions, comments, whatever it is you want to raise with the panelists. And the two people who will be answering the questions now are Mr. Ivan Anderson, the Managing Director of NROCC, as well as Dr. Carlton Campbell, the Managing Director of CL Environmental Company. So we have some residents from Bogue who have written to ask us what of compensation. How is it that they're going to be compensated for whatever they stand to lose in this, Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Emily. So in relation to Bogue Village in particular, in relation to that subdivision, we don't expect to be impacting that subdivision at all. And so in fact, we had a meeting, we've had a number of meetings with Bogue Village, the latest one being last week, where we discussed the alignment in the Bogue Village area. The Bogue Village is what we call Temple Gallery Road, just opposite from where the sewage ponds are. So we expect there is an existing reservation for road widening in that location. So we expect to be able to fit through the existing reservation without actually impacting on the houses themselves. But more generally, if we talk more generally about how we deal with compensation. So what we do normally is we employ an independent valuator who goes out and does an assessment. So we talked about doing the surveys, and from the surveys we identify approximately how much lands may be affected or whether buildings may be affected. And then we use this independent valuator to come up with a valuation for the property. And based on that valuation, we then come to an agreement, typically with the landowner. In fact, over the number of years we've been doing this, more than 98% of the time we come to an agreement where we're able to compensate the landowner where they own the land. There are other complications, obviously, where people don't own the land, where we also we have some other mechanism for dealing with it. So, for example, if the person who is on the land may have inherited it from a parent or a grandparent, but may not have title for the land at that particular moment in time, then what we do is we compensate for the buildings on the property, and we pay those upfront. And that allows the person to then relocate and move the buildings, pending the dealing with the probates of the will or getting the necessary titles for the land. And once the titles are in place, then we compensate for the land.
Right. So I heard Dr. Campbell say there are about 225 structures to be impacted. Residence stalls, parking lots and so forth, say for the Montego Bay perimeter.
Right.
And this is not compulsory acquisition of land. That's not what we're operating under, is it?
No. So compulsory acquisition of land is the legal process.
Right.
But obviously where we're able to come to an agreement with somebody without going through that process, then we use that process. We use compulsory acquisition typically where there is no owner, where there is no person there who can negotiate for the landowner, because as we said earlier, they may not have title or the probates may not have been completed. But in all respects, we compensate people who are on the land.
Right. So somebody else is asking how many houses in each community will be impacted. I think, Dr. Campbell, on one of your slides, you had that, where I made a note, 225 structures for the perimeter road, and then for Long Hill, 180 structures. Do you have those numbers to hand there?
No, I don't, but bearing in mind it's along the entire alignment. So what I'd showed on it, this slide, was that there are certain clustered areas where you have it. That map, that detail is in a structure survey report that has been submitted to NROCC. And so they are using that report now with the surveyors to go out, check the alignment. If it's there, then they speak with the individual landowners. And
just to clarify, I think Carlton clarified, Dr. Campbell clarified it in his presentation. This is a total structure. These are not residences.
Right.
So that includes, as you were saying, walls or drains or paved driveways, All of those things are included in that
Number.
202. In the case of Long Hill, at 180.
Uh-huh.
The actual structures are much, much less than that. The actual residences are much less than that.
Right.
And what we have now is a much wider corridor. So when we did the environmental impact assessment, we do it on a very wide corridor,
Yes.
given the need to
Like
necessarily
adjust it.
shift inside of that corridor. So we're hoping that as we go through the process of doing the final design, we will minimize the impact on structures.
Right. Also, another stakeholder is asking what's the estimated completion date of the project?
So it's 36 months, and we expect to start in about 2022.
Subject to
Approvals.
The
Subject
approval.
to the approval of NEPA.
36 months.
Right.
And in Jamaica, there's always fluctuation and extensions and addition of time. So realistically,
That's not been our experience. In fact, on all our projects, they have been completed on time and on budget.
right. Will land be available for those who stand to lose property? Somebody is asking that, Mr. Anderson.
So as I indicated earlier, what we do is to compensate people for the property and allow them then to relocate it. So we provide market value for the land and buildings. Where they don't have title, as we said, we compensate them for the buildings at current replacement cost for the building. So the sums that they get is in fact probably much likely to be much more than they have actually spent in constructing the building, because we're paying them what it would cost today to replace that building.
Right. So the bottom line is you pay them value, and they would have to go and find somewhere else to buy a piece of land and put a house on it if they had a house on that land. Yeah. How wide will the road lanes be passing through Temple Gallery Road?
So it's 4 lanes. Each lane is 3.65 meters wide. So the entire road passing through Temple Gallery, that area by Bogue Village, is about 21 meters wide. So including the sidewalks on the other side, including the driving lanes,
Yes.
including the median, it's about 21 meters wide.
4 lanes, you said?
Yes. So each lane is about 3.65 meters, which is
Yeah.
about 12 feet, which is typically what our lanes are in Jamaica.
So it's 4 lanes of, is dual carriageway
Right,
with 2
dual
lanes?
carriageway, 2 lanes in either direction.
Right. Okay. We pay taxes on our property. Will you accept those papers? Somebody else in one of the communities asking that.
So in terms of, I suspect they're talking about in terms of ownership, to
Yes,
prove
I think
ownership. So the issue of ownership is through the issue of title. Once you can show that you are the registered owner for the property, then we pay for the land. As we discussed earlier, where you don't have a title, then we pay for the buildings on the property. But they just paying valuations, just paying property valuation is not sufficient to show ownership.
I just wonder how problematic that is going to be legally, because you know a lot of people in Jamaica, as you said, live on land for a long time, don't have title, it's dead left land coming down, and they can't really trace root of title, have no certificate. How do you guard against anybody coming to claim for that as legal owner for the land sometime later down when you have already paid monies to individuals who are occupying a structure on the land?
So it's a difficult process. We go through a process of publishing notices, putting where people don't, as I said, where people don't have titles, then we publish notices on the property, advising anyone who has an interest to come forward. We then typically have a hearing where we invite anybody who believes that they have an interest in this particular property to come and indicate on what basis they have an interest. And then through that process, we have been able to identify the people who are to be compensated for the buildings. But as I said, until they come forward with the actual title for the lands, we don't compensate for the land itself.
Right. Somebody wants to know who is funding this.
Its project is being funded by the government of Jamaica.
Really? Even after COVID?
Even after COVID, yes. So the plan is still to fund the project by the government of Jamaica. We have been delayed as a consequence of COVID.
Yeah.
As you know, a lot of the budgets have been reduced.
Yeah.
And so that has also affected the timing of our project startup.
Right, but how far back has it pushed the intended timeline for
About
startup
a year.
then? About a year.
Yeah. So we had proposed to start next year
Yes.
if everything had gone well without COVID.
And you'd said it's what, $220 million US dollars?
That's correct, for all of the sections, for the Long Hill, the Montego Bay Bypass, and Barnett Street and West Green.
So this money is going to be coming out of capital?
Yes, yes, that's the expectation.
Wow. I didn't know. Is this one of the first projects we're doing
Yeah,
from Capital A?
Right, it will be one of the largest projects ever done through Capital A.
What happened? The Chinese money has dried up? That's not for you. Look, as a matter of fact, somebody's asking Mr. Anderson, are Chinese involved?
So originally we had discussions with Czech, but since the project is now being refinanced, that's something we're looking back at as well. So originally the project was going to be financed through the Exim Bank of China, with China Harbour Engineering as the contractors. That issue is being reviewed now that we're going to finance the project ourselves.
So if we finance it ourselves, we'll be using local contractors to...
Well, so that's all part of what is being reviewed. How do we implement?
Right. Somebody's asking, I have property at Cashew Grove, where my home was stopped at decking. How will I be compensated? Obviously, people are very interested in the compensation issue.
Right. So Cashew Grove is one of the subdivisions that we're going to impact. There are approximately 37 lots in Cashew Grove that we're going to be impacted. There are many more lots than that in the subdivision. There are about, I think, 6 houses which are at various stages of construction that are going to be impacted. Over the next 2 months, we're doing evaluations for all of the lots in Cashew Grove. We've completed some of them for the buildings, especially where people were under construction. And we're now in the process of compensating those people where they were actually building already.
Can I just ask, as we take some more questions from the stakeholders, the viewers, interested parties, send your questions to, we'll put the WhatsApp line back up and the phone-in lines back up on the screen. But Dr. Campbell, the noise that you've highlighted in your EIA and kind of the vibration, isn't it the case that sometimes when you have vibration of a certain level, then it can cause infrastructural cracks and so forth on the buildings?
Yes, it can.
Tell me how you say that you can mitigate that in the report that you have put forward.
Right,
again.
so one of the things that we had looked at is what we expect based on the type of equipment that will be used for the construction. One of the slides we had showed the distance from the road where the work is to the structure.
Yes.
And in one of them, we realized that if you're using a vibratory roller, you wouldn't want to go within 0.3 meters of a building, because if it's not constructed properly, then you're going to have problems in the structure. And of course, also with the architecture, like plasters and stuff. So in that case, then in that area, then you would have to make adjustments to use the normal roller instead of a vibratory roller. Things like that we look at.
Right. And then, Mr. Anderson, all of the people who will be working on the project will be sensitized about these the pieces of equipment which would be necessary because of potential infrastructural damage to the house and so forth?
One of the things we do, and Dr. Campbell spoke a little bit about it, especially in terms of blasting. So anybody who is within 800 meters of a potential blast site, what we do is we do what we call a pre-blast survey. Yeah. So we go through every house, we take pictures of all the cracks, all the any damages which exist in the house. We get the homeowner to agree that this is the current situation of the house. And then once the project is completed or once the blasting is completed, we go back and review those pictures. If there's a difference, then the contractor is required to correct it.
So it's a lot of homes, lot of structures you'll have to visit and do this preliminary assessment.
Especially where we have blasting. Where we have equipment, we don't expect to have that much impact. And therefore, the surveys that we will do will be much, much closer to the roadway.
Right. Again, coming out of Bogue Village, I'm a homeowner in Bogue Village. Will you pay market value for the property?
Yeah, so we answered that question before. So first of all, Bogue Village is not going to be impacted. That's the first issue. But wherever we impact properties, we pay market values.
So who is going to pay for valuation such that you pay market value?
No, so we, as we said earlier, we have employed an independent valuation surveyor, and that valuation survey goes out and does valuations of the property.
Why would the people trust your independent valuation survey?
They don't necessarily have to trust. I mean, they can get their own valuations. I mean, that's part of the discussion that we have. So if you get your own valuation, we have our valuation. We try and come to an agreement. We discussed the mechanism. So failure to come to an agreement, then we have a hearing with the Commissioner of Lands, who then makes a ruling in relation to the violations.
Okay. So the citizens of Ironshore need clarification on the route. Is it through Ironshore Industrial? This would be through Ironshore Industrial Estate or residential Morgan's Road? Is that for you?
All right.
Yeah. Or you can take that, Dr. Campbell?
All right. All right. So as we showed on the slide, the highway comes down just to the west of Ironshore. Right. Mm-hmm. So it actually comes through the open subdivision, which is just to the west of Ironshore, where the new gas station is. For people who know the area of Ironshore, it comes down the road right beside the new gas station. So it's about a few hundred meters from Morgan Road.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about the houses that were built without approval of the parish council? Would there be compensation for those as well?
So when we do valuations, we don't take into account whether the house is approved or not approved. Mm-hmm. We just compensate based on the value of the structure or the value of the property as is.
Right. There's a question there. If you just go back down a little bit so I can read it from the start. Will the drainage system be improved to run to the Bogue sewer pond? Dr. Campbell, I think you did something on that drainage.
Yeah, so part of the project, another aspect of the project is there's a drainage assessment that was done, and part of it is that there'll be upgrades to the drainage to facilitate drains, improve the drainage in the areas that we're in. Not necessarily because of the road itself, but generally drain improvement because of what has happened in Montego Bay over the period of time.
Okay. If a notice was placed on your property, will it definitely be acquired? Because I know you had to put public notices for this public session. Right. What does that mean for the people who receive those notices?
Right. So we issue notices under the Land Acquisition Act. It's a process that we go through. And these notices typically allow us to begin the process of surveying. Mm-hmm. So the notice is really to bring to the attention of the homeowner that the property may be affected and that we need to do surveys and geotechnical investigation. So it's really a forewarning for people to know that those surveyors may come or those engineers may come. They may do drilling or whatever nearby. And from that information, we then establish exactly whether the property is going to be affected or how much land may be affected.
And those individuals who will go on the drilling, how soon or how close to the expected startup date of the project will they be expected to be going to these various locations?
So right now, we're really focusing on doing the surveying. So the notices that we have issued are typically in the same Bow Village area, along Temple Gallery Road. So that is where we're focused on doing surveying now. And so they should see these surveyors out there now, doing surveys along this road.
Right. Somebody is asking for you to provide more details on the dualization of West Green and Barnett Street. Yeah, you had that up on the screen, did you?
Right. So the West Green Avenue runs from Barnett Street all the way back to Hardcook Boulevard. And in fact, there's an existing reservation there for widening of the roadway. And so what will happen is that the roadway will be widened for 4 lanes all the way through that existing reservation. So again, because the existing reservation exists, we don't expect to impact properties on either side.
Okay. Somebody again is asking specifically what is the start and the end point of dualization. Just clarify that for me again.
For West Green?
Yes.
So West Green starts from Barnett Street, from Bogue Road, going all the way back to Hardcook Boulevard.
Right, and we had a picture of that up on the screen at some point in time.
Yes, we did.
If we could get to that so that people could actually see, those who may not know the area, we will put that up soon. Is the map available online? I trust this is a whole outline of the entire project. Yeah, is it available
so it's
online?
available in the EIA reports. So the EIA reports have a lot more detail in the document,
right.
Including details of all the sections.
And we have said, and NEPA has told all of us that the environmental impact assessment report for this proposed project. It's available for access by the public. It's at St. James Municipal Corporation, Union Street in Montego Bay, the Parish Library, the Montego Bay Chamber of Commerce, Billy Craig Building, Fairview Business Center, Mobe, Anchovy Branch Library as well, National Works Agency Western Regional Office, NEPA's website, which is nepa, nepa.gov.jm, and as you said, it's on the National Road Operating and Construction Company's website at h2kjamaica.com. .jm, and it's also on CL Environmental Company Limited's website at clenvironmental.com. This map that I'm seeing here, or this picture that I'm seeing up here, is this part
so
of
that's
the
West
start?
Green Avenue. That's the section of West Green Avenue. It's approximately less than 2 kilometers long. And as I said, starts at Hordcook, at Bogue Road, Barnett Street on the right of the map.
Yeah.
And it goes to Hordcook Boulevard on the left of the map.
Right. So one of the other things that struck me when Dr. Campbell was making his presentation would be the several endemic species that are in some of the areas to be impacted, the bromelia frogs and crabs, butterflies, and all a number of, as I said, endemic species. How do we mitigate the destruction of some of these species? I mean, these are very crucial to the overall ecosystem of any country.
I'll let Dr. Campbell
Yeah,
speak.
Dr. Campbell.
So what you normally do with projects that would impact is that you go through before you start, those that can move, the endemics, like plants, then you put them in nursery, remove them, put them in nurseries, or plant them in another area that we know won't be disturbed. When you have them in nursery, you do the project, and then you take them back out the nursery and replant. Turns out like the frogs and stuff, some of them will move with some of the plants themselves because they're inside of the bromeliads. So that's the best way of doing it.
And the mangroves.
In terms of the mangroves, are tried and proven, internationally recognized. You do replanting of the mangroves. So you look at how much you'll be impacted. In the EIA, we gave you an estimate of how many mangrove trees would be impacted, and you replant that amount in the area that is specified.
They take so long to grow back. That's what the research has shown. Sometimes
Yeah, they take
50,
a while,
50,
but
75 years, I think.
no,
Not
not that long.
Well, I'm inflating it, but they do take long.
They take a little while, but a part of it is either you do something or nothing at all. And I think it's better to do something than just removing it and not replanting it.
And we have actually replanted mangroves in the past. So when we did the Portmore Causeway, we actually replanted a whole series of mangroves, and they have done very well.
They've grown back now.
They're growing back very well.
They're not
So we
part
actually-
of the reason we're feeling so much heat now because they take out so much.
No.
So hot.
So we actually have more mangroves than when we started.
Yeah. Okay. Will rehabilitation of arterial roads in Anchovy area also be undertaken? Arterial roads in Anchovy.
So the highway project will improve the sections of roads where we cross. So for example, where we cross over the Anchovy Main Road, then the section of Anchovy Main Road, maybe 100 meters on either side of the highway, will be improved, and the drainage will be improved in that area, but not any more than that.
Okay. Don't forget, viewers, to send your questions by WhatsApp, 876-878-1356. You can call in as well at 876-926-1100. Send your messages to the various fora that you are watching this on. Somebody's asking, and I see Mr. Nelson having his interest peaked there because they're asking, is NEPA on board to go ahead with this project? But NEPA has given us their public statement, and they say that this is just part of mandatory public meeting. They're here to ensure that the guidelines, the regulations in relation to public meetings, they're carried out in a particular way. I should tell you as well, there's a lady here, a stenographer, and her name is Miss Cassandra Clemmings, and she's been taking verbatim notes of everything that has gone on during this session, because the notes that she takes, the minutes will have to be sent to NEPA, so NEPA can see the things that were said, the questions that were asked, and then you can submit your questions within 21 days as well on this matter to NEPA, and then NRCA will have the final decision on this particular consultation. I got the process right, Mr. Nelson?
Yes, just about, yes.
For the most part. He's not supposed to answer any questions in this because he's a completely impartial sort of fly on the wall, not a fly in the ointment, fly on the wall. So that's why I'm not even going to ask him to answer. Will the erosion of dry gully leading from Salt Spring, passing behind Blue Diamond, causing flooding to Rio be addressed? Dr. Campbell, did you deal with that?
Yes, it's part of the drainage plan for the highway. That has to be addressed, and it will be.
Yeah. Some of the times when some of these projects are done, Mr. Anderson, an area that was never flooded, we end up seeing, even with the shortest shower of rain, flooding coming in, even though you say at the start of the project you're going to address some of these things. I don't mean NROCC, I just mean developers all over. What assurance can you give to the public that you won't actually make drainage issues worse and you will correct some of those issues from even before this project starts if you get the go-ahead?
Well, so all this starts from the assessment of what we have. So there's a fairly detailed environmental impact assessment which is carried out. That assessment looks at the potential impacts and looks at the potential mitigation factors. Those mitigation factors are then translated into the design of the project. So all of especially the large structures on the roadway are designed for a 100-year storm. And we also look at the downstream impacts because obviously within a large project like this, you may have more water running off. And as Dr. Campbell indicated, we look at how we can mitigate those runoffs, whether it be through utilizing detention ponds or other mechanisms to slow down the water coming down.
Okay.
And we have had a lot of experience doing this. In all the projects that we have done, we have not had an issue so far.
Right. We have just about 5 minutes before the end of this public consultation. Somebody's asking, so will the roundabout and those lovely trees at the roundabout, will those go?
Yeah, West Green.
West Green?
Yeah, in West Green, the roundabouts.
Oh, the roundabout inside West Green itself, right. So I think the viewer may be talking about the roundabout in West Green itself. So between the two ends of the existing roadway, between Barnett Street and Howard Cook Boulevard, where we talked about building the 4 lanes, there's a roundabout which is in the middle between both. And we will have a new traffic control intersection at where the roundabout used to be. So there'll be a new traffic light intersection there to control traffic coming into the roadway.
And will there be a meeting with Ironshore CDC?
So we've been having a series of meetings, and we'll continue to have the meetings going forward.
Okay. Will any part of the Montego Bay bypass be tolled? Toll road?
Yes. So it's expected that a section of the roadway will be tolled. We're still working through those details now. What we anticipate is that if you travel the full length of the bypass, so if you get on at Ironshore or at the Elegant Corridor and come all the way through to Bogue Road, you'd pay a toll. But if you get on, for example, at the Elegant Corridor at Ironshore and you come halfway up, you may not necessarily pay a toll. So if you come to Cornwall Courts, you would not pay a toll.
Okay. I think that's all the time we have. We've had the 35 minutes or so for questions from stakeholders, members of the public in this very new medium for public consultation, the virtual town hall. Let me just take the opportunity to thank you all for tuning in, and I remind you that a copy of the verbatim minutes which have been taken by the stenographer will be submitted to NEPA within 7 days of today's date. And you, the members of the public, you, the stakeholders, the people who have interest, those living in and around the areas to be impacted, you have up to 21 days after today to provide written comments to NEPA. These comments can be submitted to the Application Secretariat branch of the agency at 10 Caledonia Avenue, Kingston 5, or you can send an email to applications@nepa.gov.jm. All of the comments that are received by NEPA will be collated and they will be sent to NROCC for responses to be provided, just in case some of the concerns you have, you did not get them into this session. The door is not closed because the consultation process will take place through that. Can I thank you all so very much? Thank you to my presenters for this public virtual town hall. Thank you to Mr. Ivan Anderson, Managing Director of NROCC. Thank you as well to Dr. Carlton Campbell, Managing Director of CL Environmental Company. Thank you to Mr. Miguel Nelson from NEPA, who gave the public statement. And thank you to the members of the public who were engaged in this forum. And please send your comments, as I said, to the agency NEPA, so that whatever other questions you have, they can be addressed. We thank you so much for having joined us. Thank you to the entire production team, and have yourselves a good evening. I'm Emily Shields.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much.
Get moving! Home workout series with Jamaica Moves.
Jamaica!